Hello creeps! Andy here, and today I want to talk about the best horror movies to watch on Shudder. Shudder is one of my favorite streaming services when it comes to horror films. They have a lot of foreign horror films, a lot of older horror films. You get to see where the genre started, and a lot of movies that inspired things that we see in modern day horror. So I'm very excited to share some of my favorites with you. I have selected 31 horror films to watch this October. However, if you're watching this video after October, these are great for any season. Horror is not just for October. I have selected a lot of different varieties of horror films, so I hope that you can find something in here that you enjoy. Keep in mind that some of these are foreign horror films, but I'll try to let you know at least when it is a foreign horror film. And please, if there are any that I have missed that are your favorites, please leave a comment down below and let us know so we can have an ever-growing list of the best horror films on Shudder. Let's just start. These are in no particular order. First up, we have Hellraiser, 1986. This is, of course, a Clive Barker film that was written and directed by him, and it comes from the novella The Hellbound Heart that was written by Clive Barker as well. This movie is one of my favorite franchises. It's about a man named Frank. He kind of wants otherworldly pleasures, and he goes on the hunt for that. He finds a box which leads him to the Cenobites. Angels to some, demons to others, and the story continues from there. I'm going to try to give a quick synopsis for each of these because there are quite a lot of them. Next, Reanimator. This is a 1984 horror film. This is about Herbert West. He's a student and he is trying to create a concoction to reanimate people, to bring them back to life, and it kind of backfires on him. This is from an H.P. Lovecraft story called Herbert West Reanimator. I think I did a movie versus book on that, so I'll leave that linked down below in case you guys are curious. Both are fantastic. I'm gonna move over here so there's room to pop up the movie posters on the side. So this is Black Christmas 1973. Although it might be weird that I recommend a Christmas movie, at the very least add this to your queue and watch it during December. But this movie is fantastic. It's honestly one of the horror films that actually still like freaks me out. And it's done in such a way where they don't really show the face of the killer, but the way that it's filmed is just so creepy and weird. It's about a group of sorority students who keep getting very creepy phone calls. I'm editing the video right now and already realized that I'm an idiot and forgot one. So the next one is Black Sabbath. This is by Mario Bava. This is a 1962 Italian film. This one does have subtitles, and this is an anthology of, I think it's 3 different stories. And the first one I watched, I was kind of confused by, and I read online that the first story was changed for American audiences, but I honestly was confused whether it was the Italian version or the American version because neither of the concepts really made sense to what it was. After that, I was like, oh, maybe I won't love this as much as the other Mario Bava films that I've watched, but the last 2 stories were fantastic. There was one about this vampire that comes to attack this family, and it's so creepy and fun. And the third one was about a woman who steals a ring from a dead woman and gets like haunted by her. So creepy, so fun. Highly recommend this one. And now back to me a few minutes earlier. Next up we have Zombie. This is by Lucio Fulci. So this is this is an Italian horror film. This was made in '78, and I don't really think I have to say much other than the fact that there is a scene where zombies fight sharks. There's much more to the movie, but that should be the reason why you go to see it. It's just such a great zombie film. And next up, we have Black Sunday. This is a Mario Bava film, and this is from 1959. Black Sunday is, I believe, his most critically acclaimed movie that people love, that I hear writers and directors talking about how it inspired them in so many different ways. It's not my favorite Mario Bava film, we'll get to that one later, but it's basically about this witch who comes back and tries to take over the body of one of her ancestors. There's some fantastic scenes in it, and it is really creepy and fun. Next up we have Nightbreed. This is a 1989 film, again by Clive Barker. This is another Clive Barker story. It's called Cabal, and it's about this man who's told by his therapist that he's actually this crazy serial killer, and he doesn't remember killing the victims, but he thinks, well, if it's true, then I probably shouldn't live among people. So he hears about these group of people called the Nightbreed who live in this underworld. They're kind of like shapeshifters, and he goes to join them. The best part about this movie and the book, I think I did a movie first book on this too, I'll leave that down below. The best part about this movie and book is the character of the Mask. Honestly, worth watching just for him, I think. But also the underground world is really awesome. You just get to dive inside Clive Barker's twisted mind for that one. Next up, we have Body Bags. This is a 1993 horror anthology, and although the stories are like kind of silly or whatever, they're all linked together by, it's John Carpenter. He plays this, what do you call him, person who works in like a morgue, and he like introduces each of the stories through the dead bodies in the body bags. It's just such a cool concept, and I think worth watching just honestly for like the bits between the stories for him. The stories are fun, there's nothing wrong with them. They're directed by different horror writers, and I think also Wes Craven makes a cameo in there, I think. Next up, we have American Mary. This is 2013, and this is a movie about a woman who's studying to be a doctor, I believe, and she gets kind of intertwined in the body modification community, and she becomes popular, and people start coming to her for all these different body modifications. It's such a cool, creepy, kind of like under the radar horror film that I think everybody should watch. Next up, we have Basket Case. This is 1981. This one's about Siamese twins that are separated against their will. So one of them carries the other, who's just kind of like this chunk of a human in a basket, who tells him to do all these evil things, and they go to seek vengeance on the ones that separated them. Next up, we have House on the Haunted Hill. This is 1959, and it of course stars Vincent Price. It's just kind of cool to see where this story began. It's a creepy little story, and Vincent Price invites a group of people to stay, and if they stay over the night in this haunted mansion and survive, they will get some sort of like $10,000 or something like that. So throughout the whole thing, you don't know like if it's haunted, what's gonna happen, and Vincent Price is just fantastic, so anything he's in, it's I think worth a watch. Next up, we have Phantasm. This is from 1978 and one of my favorite horror films. This is about a young boy who finds that there's more going on in the town than meets the eye when people are dying unexpectedly and their bodies are going missing. So he ends up finding the tall man, and the whole movie honestly is just a fever dream. Like that's what it feels like when you're watching it. It's so weird and surreal, and there's like sci-fi in there and horror. The ball, the sphere with the drill that drills into people's skull, I mean, it's just fantastic. This movie is amazing. Next up, we have White Zombie. This is a 1931 film starring Bela Lugosi, and Bela, honestly, the entire reason for watching this film, he is so good in this movie. He's so creepy and odd and strange. I just love it. He basically kind of like runs this horde of zombies that work at a mill, and he gets approached by somebody to try to, I guess, seek vengeance on a woman who left him for someone else. Kill Baby Kill. This is a 1965 dubbed horror film. This is my favorite Mario Bava film, and it's about this, I believe he's a coroner, and he goes into this town that's supposedly haunted by the ghost of a young girl. He is trying to figure out what is actually going on in the town. It's such an atmospheric, creepy, fun film. Like, this is my type of film. It's not for everyone. Everyone seems to love Black Sunday more, so keep that in mind, but I personally love Kill Baby Kill. Next up, we have Allison's Birthday. This is a 1981 horror film, and this I would describe as like an Australian Rosemary's Baby. Although it doesn't follow exactly the same plot, it does definitely have like a Rosemary's Baby feel to it. It's about a young girl that gets warned through a Ouija board not to return home on her 19th birthday, but when she finds that her uncle has fallen ill and her uncle and aunt raised her from a young child, she has to go home to make sure that he's okay, and it'll probably be the last time that she sees him, and the story continues from there. It honestly was not what I was expecting, just selecting a random film on Shudder, but that's why I love Shudder so much, is because I find more films that I absolutely love than films that are like just okay, at least the ones that I've seen. Next up, we have Freeway. This is a 1996 horror film. Actually, it's more of a crime thriller. The soundtrack is so good. I think it's actually by Danny Elfman, and it stars Reese Witherspoon. It's basically a modern day telling of Little Red Riding Hood. This girl grows up in a terrible environment, and she goes on a quest to find her grandma. It's a great film. There's a lot of like comedy in it. I wouldn't call it a horror film by any means, but there is a lot of disturbing stuff that happens in it. Next up, we have Demons. This is a 1985 film, and it's actually Shudder has told me, by Mario Bava's son. So this one is about a group of people going to watch a movie in a movie theater. It's a horror movie, but they get trapped inside and slowly start turning into zombies. I'm gonna give a little bit away here, but there is a very creepy scene where a zombie emerges from a person's body. It's like an 80s, kind of like Evil Dead type feel to it. It's just a bloody good time. Next up here we have The Devil's Rejects. This is a 2005 horror film by, of course, Rob Zombie. I know he's very controversial. People either love him or hate him, and even if you do love him, there's a lot of debate whether people like The Devil's Rejects or House of a Thousand Corpses more. I just think that the movie is more well put together, like the time frame, the clothing, everything is just more cohesive, and that's why I like it more. It's about the Firefly family, and they are just like a group of murderers who do terrible things. Next up we have The Invitation. This is a 2016 horror film, and this is about a man who gets invited to dinner by his ex-wife who he hasn't seen in a long time. And so he comes to dinner with his new romantic interest, and he finds that his ex-wife is very like odd, like she has changed a lot. And throughout the whole film, you don't really know if he's uncomfortable because he's back in the home that they once shared, or if other things are going on, and you're just kind of like trying to figure out the plot. It's fun, there's some twists in there, and yeah, I enjoyed it. Hell House LLC, this is another 2016 horror film. This one is a found footage film, which I'm not too crazy about, but I did really like this one. I thought it was fun and creepy. It's about a group of people who go to a haunted house. Not like a house that is haunted, like a, what do you call those? Like a haunted scare thing, attraction, where this tragedy had taken place, and they go there to try to like uncover it, figure out what went wrong. This movie kind of creeped me out, I'm not gonna lie. Next up we have House. This is a 1986 horror film, and this is about a man who goes to live in a haunted house while trying to write a book, but he's also coming to terms with his past. His son went missing in a mysterious way, and this movie, although it is like kind of also Evil Dead silly in some ways, monsters popping out of the walls and stuff like that, it also has more layers to it, and I think that's why it's become such a cult classic, is because, you know, you do see his struggles with his past, and there's a lot of metaphor and stuff in there. Next up, we have The Stepfather. This is a 1987 horror film that was remade, I don't know, years back to make another Stepfather film. I actually do really enjoy both of them, but it is cool to see, you know, where a story started from. It's about a stepfather who goes around marrying different women and killing off the families and then taking on a new identity. This one is more of a slow burn, but there's something just really creepy about this one. Like in the new remake, the stepfather is like endearing at times. In this one, he's just fucking creepy. So I really like this one. Next up, we have Nosferatu. This is a 1921 silent film, but this movie is so atmospheric. We follow Count Orlok. I think he's actually a Nosferatu, and I don't think they actually use the term vampire, but I could be wrong. Nosferatu was actually one of the first black and white films that I like fell in love with, so I had to add that one on here. Next one I have on here is Ichi the Killer. This was made in 2000s, and this is directed by Takashi Miike, so if you know his work, then you kind of know what you're getting into here. I don't think I should even give too much away. Like, this is one of those, you just gotta jump in. But I will say, a lot of people do call it torture porn. It is very, very heavy on the gore and violence and torture, and it's not an easy film to stomach. So keep that in mind if you're going into it. I think Takashi Miike also did Audition as well, which is also very disturbing, but this one is more like torture-y. Next up we have, where are we? Hellraiser 2 Hellbound. This is a 1987 film and the follow-up to Hellraiser. This one kind of picks up where the second one leaves off. Kirsty has been submitted into a psychiatric hospital because nobody believes her, and the Cenobites are again summoned, and then she kind of like, you know, has to fight her way out of their world. Next up, we have Tourist Trap. This is a 1978 horror film and just very odd. If you're going into this one, just know it's weird. There's some weird music and shots that you're just like, this is fucking weird. But it is a fun movie nonetheless, especially if you're on the adventurous side, you want to go into something a little bit more daring. This is about a group of people who stop on the side of the road to look at this creepy, weird museum, and they have car troubles, they're stuck there, and a serial killer emerges. Next up, we have The Changeling. This is a 1980s horror film. This is about a man who moves into a giant, beautiful mansion, and he's suffering a lot of grief and loss, and he ends up figuring out that his house is haunted. Next up, we have Halloween. This is 1978. It is about Michael Myers. We find that he has murdered his sister as a young child, and when he escapes a facility, the quest is on to find him before Halloween night. Next up, The Toolbox Murders. This is a 1977 horror film, and although it's not the best horror film, the reason I wanted to recommend this is because it is mentioned a lot in American Psycho. I don't remember if it's mentioned in the movie or how much, but it's referenced quite a bit in the book, and so it's interesting to watch it in that context of Patrick Bateman talking about it and about how good it is. So yeah, I think it just gives a little bit more insight on the character of Patrick Bateman. Speaking of which, I did an entire video where I watched the movies that Patrick Bateman mentioned in the book, so I will leave that video linked down below as well. Yeah, so The Toolbox Murders, it's basically about this man that murders women and tries to make them pay for their sins. Next up, we have Mayhem, 2017. This is a horror film, but there's a lot of comedic aspects to it as well. It's more of a dark comedy, I would say, but it's about these people that get quarantined in this business building, and they have to fight their way through people who have gotten this virus that makes them like live out their impulses. And so it's bloody, it's fun. I really enjoy this movie. And last up here we have The Gate. This is a 1986 horror film about young boys who accidentally open a portal to hell. And I think the reason why I like this movie so much is because it's nostalgic for me. My brother was an 80s kid and he watched this movie a lot. So it just kind of reminds me of being a kid and, you know, watching a cool movie with my cool older brother. And I think that's 31. If I counted correctly. Those are the 31 movies that I recommend watching on Shudder this Halloween season, but also, you know, into fall, into winter, even into December with Black Christmas. I really hope that this video helps you find something to watch. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon with another horror video. Bye guys!